Antarctica, the most mysterious and little-studied continent of the planet, the greatest desert in the world and the coldest place on Earth, the icebound part of the world which absorbed 70% of all freshwater reserves, the only continent where time zones don't matter, unique natural conditions that you will not find in any other place on Earth. 200 years since the discovery of Antarctica, it excites the imagination of scientists, navigators, and just adventurers. But what if I told you that this mysterious continent could become a possible cause of the disappearance of such major cities as Shanghai, New York, Miami, and Tokyo?
West Antarctica consists of thin blocks of the Earth's crust, which are separated from each other by large tectonic faults, and in these zones, more heat is released than in the center or east of the continent. For example, the Thwaites Glacier is known to be melting at an abnormally high rate. Based on observational data, German and British geophysics compiled a map of the geothermal heat flow of West Antarctica and found that under the ice of the Thwaites Glacier, there is a zone of large amount of geothermal heat coming from the poles of the Earth. According to scientists, this is due to the fact that the glacier lies in a tectonic depression, where the Earth's crust is much thinner than, for example, in East Antarctica. Interestingly, West Antarctica is one of the largest volcanic regions on Earth. It was revealed that more than 138 volcanoes are sleeping under the ice of Antarctica, which are now much more active than previously thought in the scientific community. For example, on Mare Bird Land in the western part of Antarctica, American researchers discovered an active subglacial volcano, in which activity was recorded in 2010, including an anomalously high mobility of a glacier above it. And under the Pine Island Glacier, the fastest melting glacier in Antarctica, British scientists have discovered a volcano which is the cause of this melting. This is a previously unknown active volcano that is buried deep under the ice. According to Professor Karen Haywood, one of the co-authors of the paper, evidence for an active volcanic heat source beneath the Pine Island Glacier, geothermal heat from the West Antarctic Reef heats the water in the ocean, which in turn leads to accelerated melting of the Antarctic ice sheet.
The Thwaites Glacier in West Antarctica contains enough ice to raise global sea levels by 65 centimeters if it were to collapse completely. Adding 65 centimeters to global sea level will change the coastline. To put it simply, sea levels have risen by about 20 centimeters since 1900, which is already forcing coastal communities to abandon their homes and exacerbating environmental problems such as flooding, saltwater pollution, and habitat loss. But it is worrying that Thwaites, sometimes referred to as a doomsday glacier because of its pivotal role among nearby ice blocks, may not be the only glacier likely to collapse. If it spilled into the ocean, it could set off a regional chain reaction and drag other nearby glaciers with it, which would mean a several-meter rise in sea levels. This is because glaciers in West Antarctica are considered vulnerable to a mechanism called marine ice cliff instability. This happens when retreating ice exposes ever taller, unstable ice cliffs that collapse into the ocean. Several meters of sea level rise will flood many of the world's major cities, including Shanghai, New York, Miami, Tokyo, and Mumbai. The water will cover vast tracts of island in coastal regions and will largely swallow up low-lying island nations such as Kiribati, Tuvalu, and the Maldives. Thwaites is a frozen river of ice about the size of Great Britain. It has already caused about 4% of global sea level rise. Since 2000, the net loss of the glacier has been over 1,000 billion tons of ice, and this figure has steadily increased over the past 3 decades. Its flow rate has doubled in 30 years, meaning twice as much ice is being erupted into the ocean as it was in the 1990s. Thwaites Glacier, the widest in the world, is held back by a floating ice platform that locks the glacier in place and slows it down. But scientists have confirmed that this glacier is rapidly destabilizing. According to Erin Petit, a researcher at Oregon State University, the eastern ice shelf is now covered in cracks that cut across its surface. She emphasized that this huge boulder can collapse within 10 years, which means that humanity is a couple of steps away from a world catastrophe.
To sum up, it is the internal processes taking place in the balls on the Earth that contribute to the rapid melting of the Antarctic ice sheet, and not at all an anthropogenic factor, as most media claim. There are a huge number of volcanoes under the ice of Antarctica. This is also proved by NASA experts, who, based on the data of their satellites, provided evidence that there is a large magmatic plume under the surface of West Antarctica. That is, a stream of incandescent magma that rises and spreads under the Earth's crust. Hot magma erupts deep below the Antarctic surface and forms a giant lake under the glaciers of Maribel Land. This leads to the warming of ocean waters and to the melting of huge ice floes on the inside. And, unfortunately, a person cannot change anything.